I want to talk about the canvas again, the UI we have, keeping track of the score and the lives. We've only looked at text so far. The other one I want to look at is images, because just as often as you see text on a UI, you probably do see a fair amount of images. So it's probably a good thing to know how to work that and some tricks that you can use. So I would like to represent my lives pictorially, not just through text, but through actually showing the images or the lives that I have in hearts, like many video games do. So for the first time in this project, maybe the first time, depending on materials, I need to add a sprite to my game, which is just a fancy word for an image. And what image do I want to add? Well, I want to add a heart to represent each life that I have. So if you ever want to add images or sprites to your game, you're going to need an image first. So what other place than to look at the Google Images, and let's find a picture of a heart. I am not a graphic designer, for I don't feel like making my own heart. The only thing you have to be wary about is once you find the image that you like, if you search PNG, you usually get a image without a background, but you might end up with a background anyways. So even when it's all checkered like that, sometimes it fools you and it's actually part of the background. So instead of saving this image, if you really wanted to make sure that there's no background with your image, what I like to do is I like to copy the image link, not the actual image, but the image link. And you can go to this lovely website called remove.bg. If you've taken my computer science class, you're probably quite familiar with this page. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't save the image, I just copied the URL. So I'm going to click the URL, I'm going to paste it. And just so I can be double sure, this will actually remove the background for me. And there was no animation that played, so the background clearly was already moved. Let's download this image, and we are almost ready to use it in our game. So I'm just going to rename this god-awful name there. And I need to put it in my Unity folder. Well, what's a good way to do that? Well, from days gone by, you can right-click your main assets folder. You can show it in the Explorer. And if you go inside your assets, you can just copy your address at the very top. And in your file explorer, I've got so many things open, don't mind me. Paste that address in and throw the hearts, into your assets. Now there's one last thing you have to do to get this image set up to be used as an image. Unity needs to know what you just threw in here. So I know that I threw in an image, but Unity doesn't necessarily know that. Now I can see the image here, but if I click on it, I just have to make sure that the texture type is a sprites for use in 2D and UI. And now Unity knows that this is an image, and we're probably going to do image things with it, such as the name suggests, put it in our UI. So make sure you just hit that apply button, and we should be finally good to go. Now, let's go back to our canvas, and if I kind of unravel the game objects we have in it, we've got the two texts from previous video. I would like to right-click on this canvas, and I would like to create an empty object. So I'm not actually creating anything UI specific right now. I'm just creating an empty game object, and let's call it hearts. Not very creative tonight. And much like our game objects had components, there are components for UI objects. So with the hearts still selected, I would like to add a horizontal layout group. And you'll see why I'm doing this in about 2 seconds here. Horizontal layout group. maybe I will rename this to hearts group to match this horizontal layout group. And what this component does for me is if I right click on it, if I right click this game object, which now has the horizontal layout group component, and I go down to UI and I add in an image, and here is my image. Of course, I have to select which image I'm interested in showing. Well, if you just click this empty bar, this little circle, you should see your heart pop up if you successfully converted it to a sprite. And now my horizontal layout group has 1 heart representing 1 life. And maybe I will call this heart 1. Now, the cool thing about the horizontal layout group is that I can copy this heart, and if I paste, you'll see that a second heart shows up right beside the first one. And if I copy it and paste it for a third heart, you can see it follows same fashion. And I've got this kind of lineup of hearts which represent my lives. Now these are just images. They're not where I want them to be on my UI, but don't move the images. You're going to want to move the hearts group, the empty parent game object. And a good way to do that is just to go over into scene view with your hearts group selected and to put those where you would like them to be. Ideally, I would like them to replace my lives, but since I spent a bit of time on it, I'm just going to leave it up there. Both of these things are representing the same thing. I've got text and now I've got pictures to represent my lives. So now my UI is set up, and if I lose a heart, if I lose a life, I basically just need to turn one of those hearts off, right? And then if I lose another one, I got to be down to 2 lives, or 1 life, sorry. And then in the future, I could actually, gain lives. I could have more than 3 lives if I really wanted to, but let's keep it simple for now. So now I just have to worry about the tricky part, and that is the coding. So when do I lose a life? Well, I want to erase one of these hearts. I want to take away a life when my character collides with the bad thing. In my case, it's the bee. And if I remember correctly, I have a script on my player where I'm detecting those collisions. I called it the collision handler script. So if I've detected a collision with a bee, such as right here, I could put some code in here to also take a life away. I know I took away from the variable, but as far as the canvas is concerned, as far as visually representing that information. So really soak in this pattern here, because we've done this a few times, and this is really just the basis of Unity. What do we want to do in English? Well, I've got this hearts group with 3 different hearts in it, with these different heart pictures. So I would like to take away this heart. But if I only had 2 hearts, I would like to take away this one. And if I only had 1 heart left, I'd like to take away this one. So you can see that there would be different situations in which I need to take away certain hearts, but coders are lazy, but they're incredibly smart, so there's a better way to do that. We essentially need to take away the last heart in the list. You would agree with me, right? If I had 10 hearts, you would agree with me that if I lose a life, I'm going to take away the very last one in the list. Correct? So surely programmers have come up with some code to do that, such that we always take away the last one in the list. And spoiler, they have, but the question is, how do I access this picture from my horizontal layout group game object? Well, I can find out, this is called the parent, I can find out which children a game object has. So this is the parent. I can find out how many children, I can identify the different children, I can look at the children if I go through a game object's transform component. Okay. So every game object has a transform component, and we can find out all of the information about their children, or if there is any children, how many, yada, yada, yada. All right. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Let's go back and look at the code. So I am interested in the transform component. Okay. So I'm going to go public transform, and it was the hearts group. That's what I'm going to call that game object. I am interested in this game object's transform component. So I declare it up here. Once I've linked that component, once I have access to this game object's transform component, there is, like I said, some code that allows me to access all that information about the different children of this particular component. So if I've detected a B, I would like to lose a life. However, I can't get too ahead of myself because I need to make sure there's a life to lose. So before I take away a life, I have to check if there is a heart here, right? If there's a heart image, that means I have a life. Now, I could also just check the lives variable. I could check if it's, bigger than or equal to 0. But I don't want to change the thought. I want to work with this game component, the one I've been talking about here. So, because I have access to that game object, and I called it the hearts group, I'm going to press dot, and these are all of the different little methods and all of the different information I can find about it. A lot of it is gibberish, but if I type in something like children or child, look what pops up, child count. So I'll press tab on my keyboard. I'll create a little block. And this line of code will tell me how many children are in this hearts group. How many children does this game object has? Well, in Unity right now it has 1, 2, 3. I don't care about 3. I just need to make sure there are children. So it has to be bigger than 0. As long as there's children, I'm going to take away one of those hearts. As long as there's hearts to take away, I'm going to take away one of those hearts. So if there are hearts to take away, I would like to delete the very last heart in that list. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit confusing. I am going to reference this last heart. I'm going to create a link to that last heart. And I'm going to do it very similar, just like I did up here, except I'm going to do it down here. So I'm going to go transform. I'm going to call this last heart. I can call it whatever I want. And how do I get this? How do I access this game object? Well, looky here. I've got the hearts group, the main group, and I can get the child. And which child do I want? Well, I want the very last child. So that would mean I would have to go hearts group dot child count -1. And there are some array stuff going in here. So even the programmers in class might have a tough time understanding what's going on with this code. You don't have to understand. But long story short, these children are going to be stacked in an array. And I know that arrays start at an index of 0, right? So if I wanted to access the very last elements in this array, this would be element 0, this would be element 1, this would be element 2. So I'm accessing heartsgroup.childCount. Well, there's 3 children in total, but 3 minus 1 is 2, and 2 is the last element in this array. If you're not a programmer, and even if you are a programmer, ignore everything I just said, because that is some heavy-duty coding, and I don't need you to memorize that. That's why I'm doing the video for you. But now that I can access that, I can also destroy the last hearts. We've used the destroy a couple times now already. And this would just destroy the transform component part of last heart. I actually want to destroy the entire game object. So careful there. I almost don't want to put any code in here because it's kind of some advanced coding. But I thought that you guys might be doing a lot of UI stuff, and this would be super helpful for you to not even know, but have access to, so you can just copy and paste it whenever you need it for your own game or something like that. Now, if I go back into Unity, my last step is to create that link, right, from the collision handler scripts. You can see I want to talk to the hearts game object, but there's nothing in there. So I have to say, you know what, this is what I want you to talk to. And put it in right there. And as long as my code is working properly, I hopefully can destroy this last hearts. And just like that, it's gone. But it doesn't matter how many hearts I have, because now I can destroy that one. And now that there's one child, I can... These bees are moving pretty fast. It's almost too hard to hit them. 1 second. Oh. And now I've destroyed the last child. And if I hit a bee again, my game won't crash because I'm not going to be destroying any hearts because we checked if there were any hearts to destroy in the first place. Get back here, get back here. So my lives is still going down, but even though there's no more hearts to take away, my game's not going to crash and it works perfectly fine. So that was probably the, maybe next to movement, some complicated code. Hopefully the programmers in the class, hopefully you can wrap your heads around that. If you're not a programmer, don't worry about it. You'll have access to it. And as long as you're here for the ride, that's all I care about.